All right, hello friends. A couple of you have asked for just a video on how to set up a cutting station. So I've mentioned before these trays, these cafeteria trays, they're fantastic. I like it because of the edge, so whatever you're cutting doesn't go flying off the edge of the tray. The thing is, that's a little tricky about them though, is that they tend to slide around on surfaces. So when you're setting up a cutting station for your kids, and if you can use a cutting board too, that's fine. You can use a cutting board too. But what I would suggest is that you get a wet, so this towel, this cloth right here is wet. So, and it's not soaking wet, but it is damp all over. And then when you put the tray on top, it doesn't shift around. And that just gives you a little bit of more security when you're setting up the cutting station for your kids. The second towel that I have right here is just a dry towel. And what I've found is that for some of the students, they don't like it when the feeling of either the wet vegetable, or sometimes the vegetable has a little bit of starch on it, like when we're cutting potatoes. So a dry towel on the side is a good choice to have. And I'll tell you in a moment how to sort of direct towards that. So I've mentioned before the knife. This knife, and I don't know if I can actually, let's see if it'll focus on it. Maybe. You can see there's teeth on the knife. I liked having the students use something that had a bit of a serrated blade. I found that the serrated blade, it gripped the food items just a little bit better. And when it gripped the food items a little bit better, then stuff didn't, I say skate, it didn't move around on the cutting surface. So the knife, I'll just put that over here right now. And then the last thing that I often had with the kids, I had some sort of a portion container. And as we put the vegetable away, we would count it up. Sometimes on the actual bag, I would have the amount that I would want in here, as in 5 slices, 10 slices, 10 pieces, and you could have multiple bags and do that as a counting activity. And of course, you set it up according to, whatever you're making at home. So if you do need your cucumbers all sliced up for a salad, maybe you're gonna have salad each night of the week, so you could take out 5 bags and then portion up the cucumber slices in each of the bags. Okay, so it could be a Tupperware container too. So just keep that off to the side. So when you set up the cutting station for your kids, I'll be sitting where you're sitting right now in the video, so watching me. And often what I did for the students, depending on how confident they were, I would do a little bit of prep for them. So what I would do is I would prep up the cucumber, and then cutting the cucumber for the students, what was really important is that I gave a flat surface for the cucumber to sit on, so that is not going anywhere on the cutting board. So a couple thoughts about setting up your cutting board. I'm just going to put the knife off to the side here, is that I did with some students use the 4 corners of the cutting board. For some students, they were appreciative of whenever we would cut. So any of the items that would be going in the garbage, I would put over to the side here. And then some of the prepped items I would put in this corner, and I would direct the student to each corner as we cut off the stuff. So this again, right here is the end of the cucumber. That's gonna go in the garbage. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna slice up these cucumbers. So when it came to vegetables, like if we were able to cut the vegetable in 2 steps, then I would always say push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. So when the student was cutting the vegetable, okay, I would say push to go forward, and then pull to come back. Push to go forward, and pull to come back. Now, one of the things that the students didn't always do well was keep their fingers out of the way. So what I would sometimes ask them to do is make a fist and just use that to hold it down. Other students will want to use their fingers, but by putting their thumb in and fingers over and closing it like that, then you know that the knife's never gonna come in contact. Well, it's less likely to come in contact with that, okay? So it's push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. And the last piece you can do for them, but even that they can get their fingers in, push, pull. Again, some students will be able to keep their fingers nice and straight. Other students will need to keep it out of the way, okay? So that keeps it out of the way. I would direct the student to put the knife down. So you can pick the spot around here to put the knife down. Often the knife just right on the table is handy. The drying towel I would keep up at the front here, just so it stays away from the knife, okay? And then once we've done one round of actual slicing, I would say to the student, would you like to dry your hands? And often they would dry their hands. Sometimes they would open it up and dry their hands. And then I will tell you the open towel is a good opportunity to practice corner to corner folding. I had that in another video, but it would see the student, you'd point to the corner, you'd fold it over to the corner, you'd point to the corner and fold it over to the corner, then the child would reset and the towel would be back there again, dry hands. And like I mentioned before, the chopped cucumber, the stuff that is done, we can move to that corner. So that's the done spot, okay? So from here, depending on how you had the portioning, you could have numbers on the outside, or it could just be a count. So the student would put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So you would end up counting those out in there. You could even work on the literacy after the fact, where you would write on the outside the number of pieces that are in there, okay? So last thing I want to mention is that for some students, and sometimes some vegetables, the push-pull wasn't enough for them. So sometimes what I would say with them, and this is what was really nice about the sawtooth on here, is that for some of them, because the push-pull is, it does take some muscle, some power to do. So the push-pull. The other one that we can do is, and I kept on doing this with some students, is the saw, 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 saw. And then you hear it hit the board. Saw, 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 saw. So it's a little bit slower. Saw, 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 saw. Okay, so the two combinations you can do, either push, pull, if it's a soft enough vegetable that you can just push and pull through. And then for other ones that are a little bit harder to do, let's say like a carrot or maybe a potato, you could do saw, 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 saw. Saw, 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 saw. And then you keep getting them to repeat the saw, saw, saw until you hear it make it through onto the board. Okay, so again, I would ask the student just to put the knife down, and to be honest, me sitting on your side of the camera, I would bring the knife around in front of me and just leave it there, out of kind of out of the workspace. All right, if you have any questions, please email me. But that's how we set up a cutting station for almost all vegetables that we do. I even set this up, same cutting station, if we're tearing the lettuce. Okay, fantastic. Thanks for listening to me. I'll talk to you soon.